Hello YouTubers, I'm making another video to show 1999 Oldsmobile Aurora how to find a water leak. So I ended up taking the carpet out of my car, and what I did is I just made cuts here because it's all one piece, and then I made a cut in the middle. You could leave the whole back, this is the rear section, you could leave this all together, but I wanted to get it out of the car because it's so soaking wet that underneath here there's like this foam and it really soaks up water like a sponge. So I pretty much just, the easiest way I found to dry it was to take it out of the car and leave it in the sun for a couple of days. But if you want a cleaner install, I would recommend not cutting the middle, but I don't really care about how the carpet looks, so I just cut it in half so I could take each side of the back seat out independently. And if you cut it right above where the seat bolts in right there, you could remove it without having to remove the seats, which you have to do the first time if you want to make a nice cut. And this is the front section. Passenger side is where I had the most of the leak, and you could see on the this section's still a little wet, drying still, but you could see this is right underneath the front passenger seat, and you can see all the rust from how wet this was from the seat that bolts to it. These are for the two front pinholes. I'll show you in a second. So I think I have this nailed down. What I did was I took both of the doors, because I didn't actually spray it down with a hose to see where it was leaking. I just wanted to try and do what I thought would fix it instead of figure out where the water is coming from, because frankly I didn't want to keep drying water out of my car, and I figured there's only so many places it could come in. So what I did was adjust these door strikers. I put a piece of tape marking the edges on the top and the bottom as close as you can get it to it. And then what I did was mark the edge of where this previously was, and you can see I moved it in, I don't know, probably like a millimeter, maybe two. And what you do is you loosen these two T40 bolts, and you just take them like 2 turns, just enough to get it loose so that this wiggles. And then what I did was just slide it towards the inside of the car, and that made this door seal a lot tighter, which I think is where the leak was. And you just want to make sure you have these door skins underneath the car, because they help prevent water from coming in. And I didn't notice anything obviously wrong with my door seals. I mean, it was all intact as far as I could see, so there's really nothing noticeably wrong with it. So here's the front passenger seat out, and here's the airbag module. You want to make sure you probably disconnect your battery to do all this, but anyway, here's, to get this front seat out, you'll have to move the seat all the way forward. And then these 2 bolt holes here are T50 Torx bolts, and you can only get at them if the car's all the way forward, because they kind of hide underneath the seat. So, and they're on really tight with Loctite, so you're gonna need that extra space to get some massive leverage on it. I had to use a 1/2-inch breaker bar if it's the first time you ever had them off. If you had them off before, you could probably get away with 3/8. Anyway, they get torqued to 25 foot-pounds, and then all you have to do is unclip this. Mine doesn't have heated seats, so I don't have much of a harness here. It's just for the motions, the movements of the seat and whatnot. And I'm not sure what this even does. But anyway, you just pinch. So there's another one of these clips on the seat, and you'll pinch both sides and they'll kind of let go and you just pull it. And then this one has like a little T that you just press this down and then you kind of wiggle it out. And I've had this off a couple times because I'm guessing water got in here. My airbags don't work and I'm still not sure why. There's a short to ground in the driver's and passenger's loop, and I just haven't ever got around to trying to find it. I mean, it could be a broken wire somewhere, it could be a short in any of the components, but I mean, I suspected this, and I got one from a junkyard, and that didn't work either, so I'm kind of leaning towards that this might not be the problem. And I've even taken this apart. You have to remove these 3 bolts. They're 10mm it looks like, and you can pry open the casing and then get into the circuit board, and I resealed the inside with silicone and cleaned it all up and made sure the contacts weren't corroded, and I don't know, that didn't seem to fix my problem. And I also cleaned up that ground, sanded down the paint, but my airbag still don't work. So to remove this wiring connection, to get this completely off, you have to pull this out. It's like a little key that goes inside here, and then you'll have to pry out this too because it kind of holds it in there, and then you just push down on this. That's what this key prevents you from pushing it down, and then you just yank it out. It's kind of tight, so be prepared to fight with it. And you can see I had some rust here. I sanded it down as best I could and just drew some brown paint I had laying around from all the water sitting in here. It was really puddling out back here in the back seat on the floor. I mean, you could kind of see where like the water stains were. But yeah, most of the water was puddling here. There's about an inch, and it was rusting all this like really bad. So I sanded that down and painted it. Hopefully by stopping the water from coming in here, that'll stop that. You could also pull these drain plugs. I just used a towel and kept bringing it out. I found that was easier because I didn't want to mess with these because they're hard to seal once you take them off. And what else? I also did the door striker on the back door. It's basically the same process. So I can show you on the driver's side what the Torx bolts look like here. So you got one there and the other one back there. You don't have a lot of room to get at this one, so you'll need like a breaker bar or something with a 90-degree angle to get in there. And here's another ground connection for the main harness. I sanded that down. And there's also one for the battery. It's a good idea to sand that down, make sure it's cleaned up nice. And likewise for the battery. As you can see, some water even got in underneath the battery at some point, rusted that, but I haven't gotten around to fixing it. So here's what these bolts look like out. They have some kind of Loctite on them that really makes them hard to get out. So, and as far as these plastic trim panels, there's a clip right there that usually stays in underneath, and you can just pry that up after you yank it out. And then what I do is I realign it with this when I put it back in and kind of make sure it lines up as you push it back down in the hole. And then there's a Phillips screw or 7mm that goes into this on the other side. So it goes right here. So just line up those two, and that's pretty much all there is to it. And then there's little plastic trim pieces that go on here. You just get a small screwdriver or anything thin and get underneath it. How I do it is I come from the outside. If you're looking at the door, I'll slip it under this corner, get it started, and then just go along each one of these, and it comes off pretty easily. And same thing for this side. It seems like over time these doors kind of like get uneven with the frame. Before I did this, you could see a gap here where the door meets you could actually feel it with your hand. You'd get like hit up, and it was actually sticking out like probably 2 millimeters. So I'm guessing that was allowing water to get past the seals because it just wasn't very tight. And all I did was move it inward, and it seemed to help a lot. So I tested it by throwing a couple buckets of water against it, and it seemed to be, I didn't see any water come in, so I'm hoping that this fixes it. And I'll post any updates if I find otherwise that this didn't fix it. I also siliconed all the weather stripping on all sides to make sure that it wasn't coming in from the roof, which I don't think it was, because it was mostly only on the floor. So I mean, it looks like maybe some of the water came in the front door there, but I couldn't tell where it was coming from. So I looked underneath this whatever insulator thing, and didn't appear to be any water streaks there, so I don't think it was coming from the firewall. And the driver's side was actually all dry. It was only on the passenger side, so I'm assuming it was just coming in through the doors, driving in the rain, or from washing it. But apparently there was a pretty good leak coming in because there's a ton of water in there. So anyway, that was just a quick overview of this, if anybody has a similar problem. And then, alright, well that's it. I also am going to change the coil packs on this car, and it's pretty much very similar to any 3800 engine, or all the North cars in the 90s have a similar design. This is the ignition control module. It mounts on the back of the car, and these prongs face towards you. And I just sanded this down, make sure it's clean. I'm going to put some dielectric grease on both of these once I install it, but not yet because it'll get dirty in the meantime. And I just got some new coil packs, and I took some white out because I didn't have anything else, and it kind of held up pretty good, and labeled them in the right order. And I drew a diagram to help me reinstall these because I removed all of them at once. So yeah, let me open up and I'll just show you guys the coil packs too in this video, since I'm out here doing it. Oh, here's what the plastic trim pieces look like installed. The passenger front side has a screw here, and then I think one here. They're Phillips or 7mm. And you kind of just, once you get the screws off, you kind of just pull this up, and then it'll clip under here, so you kind of just have to tilt it back and then down and out, and it should come out pretty easy. Alright, so my hook plungers don't work very well, so I just put this block of wood up to help me out so I don't bash my head in. But anyway, so here's the 4 front cylinders. If you do change your spark plugs, make sure you tighten them good, because one of mine actually came loose. I've never had that happen before, but torque spec is 11 foot-pounds. I tightened them as tight as I could get with a ratchet, but apparently they worked their way loose. This probably has something to do with the oil leak I have in the covers here, but I never got around to changing those gaskets. So anyway, here's where the coil packs mount to, and each one of the coils has threads that go into this piece of aluminum, and I sanded it down. It was a little corroded, and I put a thin layer of dielectric grease here, so you can see it shining. That's where that metal plate comes in contact with it, that I believe grounds it. And there's a bolt here, 10mm, a bolt here, 10mm, and 2 bolts. Let's see if I get back in here. One here with the wire, and then to the right there's another one, and then all 4 of the back spark plugs. that go in, which are kind of a pain to get at, but it is possible. You pretty much have to remove the coil packs to get at that. It also helps to remove this whole plate to get at them too. So I sanded down this wiring connection, put dielectric grease on it to help it stay nice. And I also labeled all my spark plug wires so I know where they go, and I drew a diagram so I know the firing order and which wire connects to which coil pack. So, and this is a bonus here. These stupid elbows on these what's it called, PCV valve, they always kind of never held tight for me, so I just found a piece of fuel line. I'm not sure of the diameter on that. I think it's 3/8, and I just use these hose clamps, and I got them as tight as I can, and it makes its own 90, and I found that works really good, and there's no vacuum leaks there. So if anybody wants to try that, I recommend it. And it's just really easy to remove. You just loosen this one, and you could pull up the hose at will. And I also did the grounding kit that some people have recommended, and dielectric greased it. So, and then it goes to the coil packs right there. I fed it underneath the purge solenoid. I used just 10 gauge outdoor wire from Lowe's and double heat shrink the connections. I used the 10 gauge just ends. I got them from Northern Tool. They're nice because they have the heat shrink already on them, so it's double insulated. They should pretty much last forever. And then the throttle body, there's one that goes right behind the map sensor, and then I took it to the I guess that would be the ABS control module. So, and then it grounds it right into the strut tower. And the ignition control module has these pigtails that you just lift up on with a screwdriver, and likewise on this side there's 2 more. And there's no bolts that actually hold this in, it's just the holes from the coils that go in. And you just want to make sure that your seals are good for these, they keep the water out of your coil packs. And I'll just blow everything off with air before I put this in. But yeah, this kind of just lifts off when you have all the coils off, so that's really just the holes that the bolts go through that holds it. So other than that, I'd probably just put a dab of dielectric grease on these, and that's pretty much it. I think the torque spec on these, on the bolts for this, is just like 100 something inch-pounds, like 106. I think I got replacement bolts because the ones that hold the coils on are an annoying 5.5 millimeter, and it's just hard to work with. And so I got stainless steel ones because they were kind of rusted anyway. And these I had a special order from a local hardware store, but these have 8 millimeter heads, which is just small enough to fit the gap in between these coils. So it should work out pretty nice. With a 1/4 inch deep 8 socket seems to give you enough clearance to do it. So, and I got washers to go with it. So these are M5 by 0.8 by 40 millimeters. If anybody wanted to know the specs on these coil bolts, and they got stainless steel so they don't rust. So these should be good to go. I'll throw this all back together, and if you have a bad coil pack, you'll probably have a bad random misfire, is what I've been finding out. So, and also if your spark plugs come loose, that'll cause a misfire too, but that usually specifies to the cylinder that's loose. So just scan your codes and see what you get. Alright, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoyed.